I am now going to be starting our 6 o'clock meeting. It is now 6:20. That is the call to order. The first is the review of the July 17th meeting minutes, which is attachment 1. Can I have a motion for acceptance?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Okay, so I have Andrea. And then I have Dean. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has carried. All right, thank you, friends, for waiting for us. All right, the next thing that's on the agenda is the school climate survey, and I think all of our friends are here to have a discussion about that.
We are.
Yay. Hey, it's good to see you. Can those, Andrea, on the screen, can you see people to my left, which would be Rebecca?
Let's all slide down a couple.
So you
I
guys
saw
just-
you could come
I'll
over
come
here
down
maybe, and then they can, you come over here.
Okay, I can go up there. Or Rebecca, come to the next meeting. We're partners in crime.
This is, no one can see your pretty faces.
So that one, we updated it.
Okay. So in,
Been updated, yeah.
so, for those of you who are online, that are board members, there's an updated hard copy that was just given to us. Has this been emailed to the board?
No.
If you send it to me, I can do that right now.
So Phil is actually going to, get the newest version, and he's gonna be emailing it to you guys, immediately. For those of you who like to toggle between Zoom and
We'll also
email.
show it. We added some of the comments. We thought that would help clarify some of the charts.
While we're in hybrid, it's just so important. So.
Should we get started?
Susan, when was can you tell when the data was collected for this survey?
Yes, in May, last May, May 2023.
Thank you very much.
And Susan, I'm glad you added some comments because that was going to be one of my concerns, that there were no comments.
Well, we reviewed it together a couple times and we thought that was necessary.
Yeah, there were quite a few to go.
Yes.
So I am going to let, I'm assuming Phil and Denise, you are,
And Lauren?
and Lauren, excuse me. I'll let you.
If you want to get started, and then I'll send it. I'll send you.
No, not yet. Okay. All right.
We're gonna, oh, sorry, we're gonna have Lauren sign into the meeting so she can share her screen so everybody can see it. And I'm also gonna email it to you as well. None of the data has changed. There were just a couple of things that we added. I'll let Denise give you a little background on the committee and how this all came into.
Good evening, everyone. We're happy to be here tonight to share the results of our school climate survey. It was administered to students, all students except for preschool, staff, all staff, and parents in May of this past school year. So it was at the culmination of the school year. And you'll see that the results span several themes. One of the themes is a sense of belonging. So we know how important it is for students and staff to feel comfortable and feel that they have other people in the building that have their back. So we asked quite a few questions to try to get a sense of whether or not our buildings are welcoming to parents, and parents feel welcome. And just gonna pause for a minute.
Lauren has to turn off her microphone on her computer.
Thank you, Mark. Okay.
Nope.
So Denise, you're starting off with belonging? Are you
Yeah.
starting off with that? Okay.
Yep, we had some technical difficulties, sorry, Beth. So belonging is a theme, safety obviously is a theme. We wanted to be sure that people, you know, felt safe in their school buildings. Did they feel secure in their school buildings? So that obviously they could learn, they could teach, and achieve the goals that we want them to. The third theme was respect. We asked quite a few questions to try to elicit feedback from all of our stakeholders in terms of whether or not they feel there's a sense of respect for each other, for colleagues, a respect among students, a respect that staff exhibit towards students, to get some information about, you know, is there work we need to do in the area of respect? So we want to share that with you. Obviously, we want to be respectful of students' cultures, their backgrounds, and their differences. So that's a major theme. The next theme was inclusion. So again, do students feel included? Do they feel part of a group? Do staff collaborate? Do they feel their building is open and helpful to new staff members? How are they problem solving? How are they dealing with difficult issues like student discipline? And then lastly, we asked them about professional development. So does the professional development that we plan and that we work on with our Groton Teaching and Learning Committee, does that meet the needs of the staff? Does it give you the tools that you need in order to be able to do your job? And so we ask questions regarding that and ask for feedback so that we can get a sense of what the thoughts are out in the district, and if need be, we can do a better job at providing PD that meets the needs of the teachers and helps them achieve their goals in their classrooms. So those are our themes. Again, there were some people who just chose not to take the survey. We did leave the survey open for as long as needed. The principals would let us know when we could close the survey. So we were very flexible so that everyone had access. And Lauren has helped us organize the data. You'll see in the presentation, the data is organized by themes. And after each theme, we've included a slide with comments from staff and comments from parents. You may ask why there are no comments for the students. And the reason is, when we did have comments for the students, the comments weren't always that helpful in terms of making changes to the school climate, the culture, or what happens in the classroom. They were interesting comments, and they were comments that were important to the students, but they were really focused around what they like in the cafeteria, who their favorite teachers were, can we have pizza every day? So, you know, we thought maybe, you know, the comments from the students aren't necessarily going to give us the information that we need to make, you know, positive changes. So we eliminated the comments from the students.
One thing I also wanted to mention was that under each theme, there are a number of questions on the actual survey. We'd be here until tomorrow morning if we shared all the data from every question. We tried to choose a handful of questions under each theme just to give you the ideas of sort of what we're seeing. How this was used in the schools, the principals were given access to all the data, all the questions, all the comments. They were asked to share the findings with their staff. Some of them did that in June before they left. Some will do that over these first few days with the purpose of setting goals for this school year for improvement. So, you know, we're going to share with you some of the things that we're proud of. We're going to share with you some of the things that we have to work on. And then the plan is to have the principals, as they've done in the past, come back in October and share their improvement plans with you.
So before you start, before I recognize Bev, my understanding is that when the principals and staff come back to take a look at and give us data for each school, they are also going to be talking about the climate survey and the goals that are related. So this is, if you guys can think about it, or at least how I'm interpreting this, that this is our balcony view. This is us kind of looking at it on a whole, but then we will be hearing it from each one of the schools. So it's going to be a two-person look. So Beverly?
Thank you, Kim. Is this the same survey that went out last year, or is this survey, are the questions the same or are they different?
Yep, thank you for asking that question, Beverly. The last thing I was going to say before Lauren takes over is that the questions are reviewed each year with our Safe School Climate Committee. And that committee has representatives from all 7 schools. There have been some tweaks that we've made to the questions, but the overall themes have remained the same.
And have you compared last year's themes and the answers to this year's? And have you
We
seen
have.
any growth or things are staying the same
We'll
compared
be
to
able to
last year?
speak, we'll definitely be able to speak to that tonight with what we're showing you. And the principals were given a detailed account of a comparison data from last year to this year.
Can the board get that, Kim? The data from last year so I can see it? I don't know where mine is actually from last year. So,
Sure, I can ask the district to send us last year's data.
okay,
that-
thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we
like I
can-
said, we will share
yeah.
some of those numbers tonight. I know it'll, but we can take what we share tonight and definitely provide that in writing so you don't have to take so many notes.
Yeah, we tried to choose questions that were similar so we could show where there was an increase and then where there was a decrease, and we have some work to do. Okay, so we're going to start with Lauren with sharing her screen, and then we'll walk you through the presentation.
Sure. So the data that you're seeing here is we wanted to, obviously a lot of times we ask how many people actually took the survey. So as you can see from these numbers, we had tremendous response when it comes to the students and the staff, which of course we have easier access to. Parents, again, in May and June, we would love to see some additional, we definitely want to get those percents up. We always shoot for, at least 30% to show some validity to the work. 50% is considered, excellent. So we hit that in a lot of different areas. I'm hopeful, and I believe that with the new communication platform with Parent Square, hopefully, and we're thinking, we're even talking a little bit about the timing of the survey to make it more accessible
For everybody.
for everyone. So we're hoping to get those numbers up. But overall, like I said, between the students and staff, we have excellent numbers. Parents are decent, but we would like to get that up, 30, 40, 50%.
Now, I personally think the parents are disappointing, that we really have to try our darndest to get more parents to participate in these surveys.
We agree.
Yeah, that's why we were thinking of the timing maybe earlier in the year when there's some events at the school and we can get some feedback maybe even mid-year so we can make some improvements before the end of the year. So they'll be more impactful. But we definitely want to see that increase.
The first theme mentioned was the safety. So how are members of our community feeling in terms of safety within the building? And so again, these are just samplings. We want to give you a sense of a variety of questions that were asked, different responses at different levels. Anything that you do not want that you do not see here that you do want, we do have access to, and we can share that with you. I'll make notes of questions that you have that you'd like the data for. So in terms of our elementary school students, you can see that our early elementary, which consists of K through 2, grades K through 2, the question was a yes/no question, and they had to respond, do they feel safe in their classroom? And you can see that 83%, just over that, do feel safe in their classroom, compared to our upper elementary, which is our grades 3 through 5 students. And their positive or yes responses was 65% of the surveying population.
And one of the takeaways that we had in terms of the upper elementary is that grades 3, 4, and 5 is oftentimes when students start to be more aware of maybe some peer conflicts, maybe some peer pressure, maybe some concerns, about what might happen in school. They become more aware of what's happening in the media. So we wanted to, to consider that as a factor in terms of why less students in grades 3, 4, 5 feel safe in their classroom as opposed to their younger peers.
Matthew, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just glanced briefly at the comments. I found your analysis of why it doubled of those who did not write yes. And I think there may be a great difference between I'm not sure that everybody who said no felt unsafe. Let me put it that way. But did their comments, did you get comments that gave you insight as to why these youngsters, particularly the younger ones, were not comfortable in saying yes?
We didn't elicit comments from the younger children. So that may be something we want to look at adding in next year.
Mhm.
But I will say, part of the purpose of gathering this data and doing it, just like we're doing tonight, where, when we sit with the principals, we ask questions, we develop questions based off of what we see. And what they're tasked with doing is then going back to their buildings and see, having those conversations with their kids, whether it's at an assembly or whether it's through advisory, or just through the classroom teachers, as to maybe, just that very question, Matthew. We noticed on the survey that, only, 65% of you feel safe in class. Is there something that's causing that? We struggle sometimes, even with the early elementary, as to what they feel safe even means. Are they thinking of it the same way as the older kids think of? As Denise was saying, because as the older you get, the more aware you are of what safety truly means. Whereas sometimes with the early elementary, safety could mean if they tripped once in their class and skinned their knee, that's not safe.
And it could have to do with emotional comfort as well.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes.
I have to say that on the slide to the left with the early elementary, that's actually an increase from 77%, and it's kind of flatlined with the upper grades because it went from 66 to 65. So it was really not significant at all.
Yeah, I would say if in your conversations with school level admin, you learn anything that might have some policy import to the board, I hope you'll share that with us at that point.
Absolutely.
Bev, do you still have a question?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. Did you not get comments from the upper elementary either?
No.
No, okay,
We
no
have it for
comments.
several years.
Okay.
They just want pizza every day.
I don't know why they want pizza and ice cream.
So looking at the adults at the elementary level, you can see that we have both parents and staff on this slide. And really, it's still around that same idea of safety within the building. Do I feel safe sending my child to school and for learning purposes? As an educator, do I feel safe in the building? And you can see the overwhelming of the parents that completed the survey, the overwhelming response was that yes, I feel safe sending my child to your school to learn in our district. The elementary school staff, again, 88%, just over that. Yeah, there were some comments. Most of them came from, I believe, the secondary, yes, secondary staff members, but also elementary. And really, in some cases, the negative, the adults that said no, they do not feel safe in the building, it wasn't necessarily, it was more structural. So for example, at the high school, they felt like the vintage wing, there were aspects of that was not healthy for them, and they didn't feel safe in that aspect. In one of the buildings, I believe it was the middle school, where the stairwell, they felt like that wasn't a safe space the way it was structured. It's out of view from the main corridor of the population, so it's a little more isolated. And in that sense, they didn't feel safe.
Yeah, but this is totally about elementary. Was there anything about the elementary that you don't have that listed
Yes.
in the back?
Yes, so CB,
There's some comments about Barnum being an older building and maybe not being as up to date as some of the newer buildings. So that did come through in terms of elementary.
So that means the focus is mostly CV.
Mostly CV. Yep, some teachers do feel that the new buildings are too large. And, I think there's still an adjustment out there to Mystic River and Thames. And there were some comments that, in a large building, sometimes I don't feel like, the communication is always what I need if there were to be an emergency. So there are some people out there with some, worries about being in a large building and what would happen in an emergency. Yeah, I thought so too.
So just for the group, Bev, I'm gonna recognize you. But for the group, do you want us to hold our questions until we get through sections, or does this, okay?
Whatever works for you.
I think you'll get a better essence because you're asking some questions that you're gonna see slides about. So I think if we can get through the whole,
At least for the
Yeah.
each section.
for each
Yeah,
section.
each theme.
Yeah.
So for secondary students, we looked at the safety on the bus, whether they were feeling safe riding the bus. Which, again, 85% said yes, they feel safe being on the bus, their ride back and forth to school. That was really a flat line again from last year. There wasn't much of a change in, the positive versus negative. It more or less was a flat line again.
And we felt that was an important slide to share because there are, perceptions out there in the community about having middle school and high school students together on the same bus. So we felt that was a positive to share.
And so now looking at the secondary school adults, parents versus staff, again, parents overwhelmingly positive, they feel safe sending their children to school. That was more or less right around the same as last year as well, no significant changes there. And the secondary staff, while the numbers at 65% feeling safe, again, that goes back to, like we were saying, some of the structural issues with the buildings, the health factor. One thing that did come up was this idea of backpacks and whether students should be carrying them around or not. So that did come up as well as an area of why they may not feel safe. And that's it for this section.
Yes, so
Any
Bev,
questions?
do you have questions?
No, that's okay.
I think the comments come at the end, is that
Yeah,
right? I thought they
the
were
next
in, yeah.
section.
So we tried to group them together, so safety and belonging, and then there's the comments, the related
Okay, so we're gonna go
comments.
through belongings and then
So
we will.
with regard to safety,
Okay,
with regard to safety, on the secondary level, the staff, you mentioned structural and backpacks. What about, to what extent are behavioral issues causing some of the faculty to be concerned?
Behavioral issues. We're going to address that when we get to the slide about respect. There were some
Okay.
concerns that were shared in terms of consequences being applied consistently. So we thought that really belonged in that section.
Okay,
Yeah, as you'll see, a lot of these, we tried to group them, but a lot of them overlap. You know,
Yeah.
they fall under, more than one heading.
so how about if we do this? If you guys have questions, just write them down quickly in case you guys forget. And then let's do this let's see if we can ask the questions at the end.
All right, so student survey for belonging. How do students feel going to school? Our early elementary students were overwhelmingly positive, 80%, 79.56%, said that they like school. And 81.58% said that when they are upset, there is an adult that they can go to for help.
And this is the younger K through 2.
These are our K2 students. And again, this was one of those places where it was sort of static. The numbers didn't really fluctuate tremendously. So our upper elementary, again, we see the variation between our early kiddos and our upper kiddos. So this is grade 3 through 5 again, and there was somewhat of a decrease here in how they're feeling about school versus, an adult that they feel they can go to. And the numbers are not as good as they're not where we would like them to be. So it's an area that we need to continue working on. So how they feel about school, 55.54% said that they feel good about coming to school. And 62.9%, 63% of them said that there's an adult that they can go to if they have trouble or need help.
And the principals will come and talk about that. They actually make some concerted efforts after I did the whole be a champion talk last year on really letting kids know that they, had specific people that they could go to. So they need to continue that work. And also to find out what feel good about my school actually means, to kids. I think whether they even do some focus groups with some upper elementary kids to find out what they're really driving at will help us.
Yeah, I know in my year-end conversations with the elementary principals, they were really surprised by this data in particular, because of the efforts that they made. But as we reflected on what they did throughout the year, they did have a focus on finding that trusted adult. But then a few of them did admit that over the course of the year that the language sort of got dropped. Or the efforts, they started out with that strong, but they didn't go back and revisit it, throughout the year. So they are going to talk to the kid. I know that's going to, like you said, you'll hear about it as part of their plan, because they were disappointed with this because they really, at least initially, had started out with this as a focus to find kids that one trusted adult that they could rely on.
So again, when we look at our elementary school parents, they felt the results were positive, that there are opportunities for parental involvement to be a part of the school, to be part of the community. When they were asked about their comfort level with talking to teachers and administrators, it was all positive, very, very positive results. They felt very comfortable with that. And that's that. That is all there is.
That's all.
And it's an increase.
Yeah, and it is an increase. Okay, so both of those areas did increase from last year.
This was good to see the secondary, because this is something that we've really been trying to drive home. I ask every kid I ever meet, who's your go-to at the high school level? So, with that did increase too from last year.
Yes, yeah, there was a really nice jump with the secondary students. Is there a trusted adult that they could go to in the school? And it increased from 82% up to 88%. And then the other question involved extracurricular activities. Were they involved in them at any point in the year? And the result was 66.95, so just about 67% of the secondary students had been involved in extracurricular activities. There was an effort, a real effort put forth, especially this year, in terms of diversifying the offerings for after-school activities among these students. So there was more options for kids to improve engagement, to improve attendance. So this was a nice increase to see.
I think that goes along with this 21st century grant that we were having, and really looking for other things beyond sports to really engage kids in, especially kids who wouldn't typically be engaged or had a problem coming to school. So that was good to see.
And Dan really led the way with that.
Dan Couture,
to
a
stay on
wonderful
top of it.
counselor at the high school, led the way.
Okay, so the next slide has some comments. We tried to pick some comments both from parent and staff that were positive, but then also gave us information on areas we could improve on. So the first one, we were really pleased that one of our parents felt that their bus driver is amazing, makes us feel safe with her driving. So that's a really positive comment for our bus staff. Another staff member said, I'm a firm believer that I can't make content available to a student until I have first established a connection and built a relationship with them. This is actually a middle school teacher. So this teacher understands the importance of making a connection with students and getting to know them so that students are open to learning and able to, to feel comfortable in her classroom. So that connection and social emotional learning is important to this teacher. So we were really pleased to see that. Matthew, I misspoke. We did address discipline in this section. And there were comments, this wasn't the only one, but there were comments from the staff saying that they would like to see the consequences applied consistently to students who don't follow the rules throughout the school year. We tend to start out really strong in the fall, and then whether it's, staffing issues, or other issues that impact our schedules. Sometimes there were comments that the consistency and the continuity of those involvement of the administrators in terms of students who were not following the school rules tended to be an area of concern for some of our staff.
Well, and I think it's even a communication issue that they sometimes don't get. What's happened when I look at my data on in school, out of school, and expulsion, it doesn't jive with what they're saying because I am seeing consequences. I think that we need to do more with restorative practices and making sure our teachers are involved in the process if there's been a problem in their classroom. So I think we need to take it to a different level.
And we also know what the triggers are in the buildings. The high school is working with a focus group to address cell phone use. So we know that cell phones can be a trigger for behavior. There are areas that we know that we need to tighten up on, and work has already begun in those areas. We also had a parent comment that as a sixth grader, my son has had a very positive experience this year at GMS. He has become more independently motivated to do well academically. He speaks incredibly positive about his teachers and has benefited greatly from multiple after-school intramural and sports programs. So that kind of speaks to what Lauren was talking about with the diversified offerings that we've been able to provide this past school year.
So do people have questions about the safety and belonging? This feels like that's a good place to stop. Matthew?
I have a question for Susan on the secondary students involved in extracurricular activities. It says 33% said no. And I was wondering, Susan, does that accurately reflect your assessment of extracurricular engagement? And based on how you answer that, how do we engage more kids?
Well, that would take some data finding for me to see how many kids are involved in all of our sports programs and after-school programs. I do know that kids are very busy, and we do have students who go home to take care of siblings, and because they have a double working family, they're going home to feed their family, they're going out to work to help feed their family. So we have a lot of kids who really are contributing in a big way to their family, so that it might keep them from going to these after school. But it's certainly something we can look at our end of the data to see if it matches with what they're saying.
That's very, very useful. Thank you.
Liz?
Years ago, we used to have a hat and hood program policy saying, you don't wear a hat, you don't wear a hood, there's no head covering. And I've been up at the high school, middle school, most of the high school, where that has seemed to have disappeared. And that is concern of safety. I know when I was there, it was something like, well, if you can't see their faces, we can't tell on the cameras who this is doing or what's happening. So, and it's been a concern. And I was wondering if that policy has been eradicated, we're not following it, we're not doing it, or is it just something that's gone by the wayside, or it's like one of those things where, well, we kind of gave in on it. I just think it's something we need to, I was just kind of wondering if that was part of that safety, because I see it as safety. If I can't see you, I can't.
So hoods still are considered a safety.
Yeah.
But headdress can be something that is a cultural thing, or could be a religious factor. So kids need to be able to do that if that's part of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But, and even with the hats, when they said that they could wear a ball cap, they really didn't wear them that often, but the hoods are definitely still out. Was there any comments though from parents or secondary students or from teachers saying that they felt that that was a safety issue? The dress code in any way?
No, I think that the concern really was that there seems to be this trend where students don't use their lockers. So students are carrying their coat, if they're wearing one, and their backpack with all their belongings from class to class. That came up as a concern from several teachers.
That's been around for a very long time.
Do you
know.
remember that even?
Oh,
when you were
yeah,
Teaching?
absolutely, you know, like, especially when we moved into the new building. Because some kids had their lockers
Yeah,
were
that's
on
right.
the
Right.
bottom floor and they
Same
were
thing at
all
the
the way,
middle school.
you know, so, you know, there's gotta be a better plan for that.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, but you know, the concern I had was, you know, being able to see, and I'm not talking about cultural headdresses. I'm talking about the ball cap that, you know, hides somebody's eyes or face, you can't see somebody, or, you know, a hat, a winter hat that's on. I'm not talking about ones that are, you know, 'cause that's not something.
I have it down that maybe, Phil and his work at the high school can see if that's a policy that's still in place in Wasco, the secondary principal.
Well, I will say, I remember at the beginning of last year, it was reviewed because the data, for the disciplinary data around headwear was culturally inequitable. That was identified as the students who were getting in trouble for that were our minority students. So they did, I know they did look at that policy and rewrite that policy to not be discriminatory. So I don't think it's the way you remember it, that policy.
Okay.
That policy is no longer in place.
Alright.
I think teachers still have the right to sort of, you know, ask a student to remove it while they're in class, while they're sitting in front of them, and things like that. But I will
We'll find out
I will
more.
check on that to find the exact language, but I know it was revisited at the beginning of last year, just before the year started.
I'm surprised though that it did not come up.
Well, no, not that it stood out, but we'll
No,
go
I
back and
think it
double
might have
check.
come up once.
Yeah.
About the hats, being able to wear it once, one time.
Any other questions on this section? If not, we'll just move on. I'm seeing them, please.
So in terms of respect and inclusion, elementary students were asked whether they are provided with books with different types of families and scenarios. And the early elementary, 66.9% said yes, they do see a variety of different types of literature, different types of families and groupings. The upper elementary, 48%, said that they too are provided those types of books. Those are both pretty significant increases. In the upper elementary, that actually doubled from last year. And I think some of that has to do with the amount of work and effort and money that went into improving libraries. Do you want to speak to that, or did that?
Well,
the
yeah,
grant.
that we've actually, you know, made sure that we had classroom libraries, culturally responsive classroom libraries, both in the school and in the classroom. So we have you know, books that represent our students, and they can see themselves in the stories. Yeah.
For secondary students, they were asked about the high-level courses. Were they able to select them? 76.95, so almost 77% of the students had positive responses to this question. And they were given the choice, instead of a yes, no, it was strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And this is actually our first year asking this question. So this is our baseline, but it will be an important question to follow up with next year, given the amount of additional courses we've added at the secondary level, the options that are now available, those higher level courses, the continued work with IB. So this is a question we're going to monitor closely over the next few years. In terms of teachers, helping them to try their best, 89% said yes, that's happening. That has come down a little bit. It was a little bit of a decrease.
But it's still good news that they're feeling that way,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So with our elementary school staff, this was an interesting comparison, and this is why we put these two together. So when asked whether or not the building fosters an appreciation for student diversity and respect for one another, the positive responses, 91%, said yes, that is something that we work towards. And then when asked about students and do students treat each other with respect, notice the difference. 70% said yes, students are treating with each other with respect. In this case, this did go down. It is a decrease, but it was an interesting comparison because what they're fostering and what they're seeing
Yeah.
doesn't seem to align. So it was a great way to begin conversations, and I think at the building level will be as well, to find out where that disconnect may be. Similarly with the secondary staff. So they felt that building relationship, they were fostering an appreciation for diversity, or appreciation for respect for each other. 63.5% had positive responses. Yet if you look at, and this is huge, at how they perceive students treating each other, 74.4% had a negative response to that. So they feel that students are not treating each other with respect, even though they are working to build that and foster it within their building.
But this was interesting because we looked at the student data and it's just the opposite of what students see each other treat, how they see each other treating themselves.
And
Yes.
so exactly that, when the secondary students, and we saw how adults viewed how they were treating each other, the students, it looks almost opposite
It's-
of
yeah.
how, it's literally opposite of what the students believe to be true, how they treat their peers. They feel that it is respectful. So that lends the question of what does respect look like in the eyes of a child versus the adult? So this is a great. I agree.
It's gonna be very interesting to have those conversations.
Yeah.
As the school year opens with staff to find out what they're seeing and what they're
Yeah.
hearing. Because that's, we realize that there's two different perspectives and two different age groups, but at the same time, that's pretty vast.
And can the adults and the students find a middle ground of
Yeah.
what respect looks like in our community? So elementary school staff. Staff respects all colleagues regardless of ethnicity, culture, or diversity. Again, this was positive results, 94.2%. And they felt that administrators also foster respect and culture within the building. 84.86% had a positive response to that.
We don't have a comparison because the
We do
wording
not.
shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
It was different this year than last.
So again, another area that we'll look closely at and monitor.
So in terms of comments, one of the staff commented that he or she thinks the administration does a great job trying to foster a positive work culture. Another comment was, some students treat others with respect, but few middle school students are kind all of the time.
And we kind of said, that's true with adults too.
Parent commented, my son says that the para in his class is helpful and friendly. And in the past, he's not felt comfortable asking for help, but now he does. So we thought that was a nice shout out for our support staff. And we want to be sure we include them. Another parent commented, the communication about things going on at the school is great. Administration does a great job of keeping the families informed. And then a staff commented, to truly address the social and emotional learning of the students, administration has to address the social and emotional well-being of the teachers and the staff. And we thought that was very well put.
That
That
was
if
very
the
well put.
staff is not feeling that their social emotional well-being is being addressed, then it's hard for them to in turn assist their students in their social emotional well-being. And we know that there were a lot of stressors last year in terms of, the triple-demic and some staffing turnovers that we had with some of our administrators at the middle school and high school. So there's some challenges out there, and it can be very difficult at times to have a positive attitude every day coming into school. So we want to be sure that we're aware of that and we're supporting everyone in our buildings.
I recognize Denise.
Denise, do you know what level these staff members were, where came from and parent comments were from? What levels, like the first comment?
I think the para comment was from an elementary parent.
Okay.
And I think that the staff, social emotional learning, comment was from a secondary staff member.
I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, we can make a note in the future to
Yeah,
put the
I would like
levels,
to just
put
know
where
what
the comments
level.
are coming from. Big Matthew.
Sorry.
Hi, Matt.
Thank you. I'm looking at secondary students. I'm able to select high-level courses. And I'm not clear whether that question was interpreted as I have the capacity to enroll or whether I actually enrolled. Did you tease that out?
Yeah, and I think you're right. And as I was looking at the data, I think the question was about access. But you're right. The fact that some might interpret it as no, I did not sign up for those classes, so they put no. That could be teased out, or maybe we can look at how the question was phrased. But I think that's more of a question for us, to see if kids feel they have the access.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that absolutely. I think it might be worth at least considering and having another question after whether they're able, whether I actually did sign up for a class. You may see some differentiation there. That would be useful.
So part of the job of the Safety and Wellness Committee is to look at the data when we get it in really closely, and they haven't had a chance yet. And to look at the questions to see how they align and to do any changes that might need to happen so that we get a clearer picture. And sometimes it's even how we ask the question. So we'll definitely bring that back to them, Matthew.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Matthew, we could probably pull that data from class roster. We could tell you the number of kids in the AP classes or the IB. We could look at that without polling them to get accurate numbers. But
Yeah,
definitely something worth looking at.
the other question I had, and I think one of you alluded to, is how does the word respect operationally vary when applied to staff perspective and when applied to student perspective? And
That's true with most of these words.
I don't know how you get at that, frankly.
I know. It really does, though. I look at all the words that we've used in here, and they could have different meanings for different folks.
So we're gonna move on if there's no other questions.
So the last section dealt with professional growth. So this was specific to faculty and staff. And when pulled at the building level, whether professional development was meeting their needs to help them be successful in their role, 67.72% felt that it was beneficial to them and it did impact their ability to do their job well. At the district level, asking the same question, you can see that elementary staff, 55.78% felt that the PD was useful in helping them improve their practice, while at the secondary level, only 36%, 36.5% felt that it was beneficial to them to help them be successful. And one thing we did note was that this was very interesting both at the building and district level, because after each professional development, staff is surveyed. And based on the results from those individual surveys, the responses were for the most part, positive. That it was helpful. So with Cornelius Minor, Jerry Paul, some of the work that's happened in other places in the building, they felt that it was helpful. So our results on this bigger survey don't necessarily align, so we need to take a closer look at that.
Yeah, and this, you know, just for clarification, we have the different PD days throughout the year are split amongst, you know, teacher choice, building initiative, and district based. So I know, you know, if everyone had a choice, they'd probably pick more building based or definitely more personal choice. And we would love to offer that. We try to offer that as much as we can. But then there are some district goals that need to be moved forward. And so we have those district days. So I think that's reflected here too. I mean, this gives me something as someone who has a role in the professional development district-wide to think about and to look into. And I lead the Groton Teaching and Learning Council, which is made up of teachers, administrators, as well as myself. And we discuss every time we meet, we look at the survey results, we look at the positives, what people responded well to, what people didn't respond, and we do try to make adjustments as the year goes through. And as Lauren alluded to, maybe that's sort of, you know, some of that data can be used to get a more accurate in the moment opinion of what we're doing, rather than at the end of the year sort of reflecting back on things that they did in September and October. But definitely something that you know, the data on the professional development is something that I'm going to look closer at and ask a lot more questions about.
Great. And then in terms of the comments, it's a, oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Liz.
Bill, I just had a thought while you were saying something.
Mhm.
Maybe at the moment, they hadn't implemented it. But after they've had time to implement or try to, then they see if it's how valuable it was. And that's just another spin on it.
Sure.
I just had that thought, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
Because I
that's a good perspective, because you're right. Maybe they thought it was useful and then when they really tried to put it into practice, they didn't,
Or they didn't feel like
or they
had-
needed more.
They needed more,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was on the same wavelength with you, thinking maybe we do a follow-up survey a few weeks after to say, how has this gone?
Instead of immediate.
Instead of, well, so immediate, but then a follow-up, but not waiting all the way till the end of the year when, you know.
Speaking from personal experience.
Yeah. No,
Because you can get really moved by something and then all of a
Right.
sudden you're like,
And then I went
That's
in to
nice.
do it, and it was like, no.
Well, and I think
point.
too, we have representatives from all the buildings on this committee that really designs it. We don't design it all, you know, it's really a committee's work. So even to have them go back out to the staff, even at a faculty meeting, to say, can you give us any feedback? How's that working for you? And even department meetings, I mean, 6 through 12 is meeting now, really in every discipline at times during our district time. So for them to acknowledge, we usually get real positive feedback when they can collaborate with one another. So to kind of tweak out what is it that they like about district initiatives and what are the things that maybe haven't gone so well. So we can get specifics.
And problem solve for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the comments, it was interesting to see what the teachers feel they need in order to be able to perform their role in the best way possible. One comment addressed the multi-tiered systems of supports in terms of behavior, social emotional learning, saying there's a need for staff PD in this area, as well as data collection and use. And that's actually something that we're giving the special ed teachers time to do on August 28th in the morning. So that's something that we will actually be implementing right away. Another comment was PD should be focusing on giving teachers concrete strategies that we can implement in our classrooms, as well as having expectations communicated to us clearly. So here you see a little bit more of the discipline where they'd like to see some expectations in terms of how they should, you know, be implementing some of the consequences and holding kids accountable in terms of behavior. But we're also working with Mari Wrightington this year to present some tier 1 behavioral strategies that all teachers can use. They're very concrete strategies in the classroom to help address behavior, give kids movement, and increase active engagement. So that one, I feel that we're
But
gonna be
I'm
addressing.
reading into that even a little deeper, that they want to have clear expectations on how to utilize these strategies and what our expectation is for them to use it. So I think that's something we have to talk to the principals about, what we're looking for.
Right, right. And it will be more of a professional learning community in the building because we've asked the principals to keep these modules alive throughout the year. So to come back at a faculty meeting and talk about one of the strategies that they learned and have people share, well, how did you use
How did
it?
it work?
Did it work? What will you do differently next time? So to keep the learning going throughout the school year. But we have a series of modules that will be presenting to all staff in terms of those tier 1 behavioral strategies this year. And then lastly, professional development should be more relevant for teachers that teach specials. Sometimes this is the case and sometimes it is not. And it is a challenge to find relevant PD for everyone and every discipline. So we appreciate hearing that.
We used to have regional PD that was really run by Learn and, committees of teachers, and with COVID, that kind of went away. So it was really difficult, but I do think that they're trying to get it started again. I think that will be helpful.
Any questions on that area before we get to our overall takeaways?
One quick, PLCs, are they still in place?
Yeah.
On all levels?
We actually ran at all levels, book talks, PLC started out with this summer. We did, yeah.
And sometimes our grade level
They
meetings.
kind of fluctuate.
No, we've got them happening. Yeah.
Anyone online that have any questions about that before we hear the takeaways? All right,
Then I'll walk you through the takeaways. And again, these are all based on our reflections on some of the data that maybe we have seen that you haven't seen too, but and conversations with our building leadership. Under the topic of belonging, we definitely identify the need to continue working on culture and climate, beginning with fostering connections between students and adults. That's something that, is on the mind of certainly building principals on a daily basis and administration, but clearly a concern of the staff as well. And those of, again, I believe, I've seen the plans already for these beginning PD days are based a lot around making connections both with each other as staff members and creating ways to do that with the kids as well to help build that culture and climate to be more positive. We have seen the second bullet talks about the positive outcomes that we've seen in terms of engaging students and on the secondary level and diversifying the extracurricular offerings. We saw that in some of the data. And we want to keep making things accessible to students. Again, increasing the offerings, making sure that we're providing transportation so everybody can take part in it, and trying to do that district-wide. The third bullet talks about the interdistrict magnet offerings at the elementary level and the fact that those have contributed to students and families having choices. Choosing the schools having the ability as well to enter a lottery to get into the schools that have focuses of that are desired by their children.
And as well as choosing enrichment opportunities during the daytime and after school.
The principals have done a good job of providing different choices for the kids in throughout the school year to explore different topics and activities. In terms of respect and inclusion, again, that's an ongoing focus. We talked at length about that with administration. I know they're going to be talking with their staff. We want to make sure that students are seen and heard and provided opportunities to follow their passions, pick their paths, as they move up. And also, that has to do with ensuring that for staff as well. We want staff to feel that sense of belonging. We want them to feel that their voices are heard by both building level administration, district level administration. So we're always working to improve that. And then, of course, our work continues to strengthen our curriculum in a way that allows students to connect and explore the wide range of perspectives. As Liz can attest, and our curriculum committee is always busy. We had a lot of work going on this summer. Our curriculum is very fluid in that we continue to try to update it, to provide the best opportunity for our students. Other takeaways around professional growth. Again, we just spoke about this in terms of using that Groton Teaching and Learning Collaborative to improve communication, throughout the district, using the data to make future decisions based on professional development, both on individual level, the building level, and the district level. The teacher evaluation and support plan is undergoing some changes. We might have talked about this a bit in the past, and we'll talk with it more with the board in the future. But it is really, we have to submit a new plan for professional growth for teachers for the 24-25 school year. So we are using this year as a pilot year to try some things out based on the state's model that they've put out to districts, which does focus more on professional growth areas for teachers. The data part is still there, of course. We're always concerned with student success, and that's part of everyone's job, and we understand that. The point of the new teacher evaluation and growth program will really be for teachers to reflect on their practices, work with their administrators, identify areas that they want to pursue, and help build capacity in our teachers. We're hoping that will also have a positive effect on professional development, because we're going to be able to hopefully allow them to pursue different areas that they've identified as their areas of improvement. So those are things that we're going to do this year with our teacher evaluation program as we develop a plan to submit to the state for 24-25. And then, of course, school culture and climate, particularly at the secondary level, will continue to be to improve that for both students and staff. And then when it comes to safety, it goes without saying, but we want to say it anyway, safety, it will always be a priority. We're going to continue to monitor and improve our systems. That's going to be ongoing in a variety of different ways on the building level and district level. What was nice to see was that the parent and guardian survey overwhelmingly agreed that students were safe and that the schools are secure. So that the community's perception of what goes on in schools is that they feel safe sending their kids to our schools, which is great. And we want to continue to help kids feel safe while they're in the building, staff to feel safe while they're in the building. But that was one area that we saw that was a really nice positive. And hopefully we'll see that trend continue even as we get a higher response rate from parents as well.
And Clint and Sam have done a marvelous job getting cameras and wiring done, and Mutual Link is coming. So that's going to be an added resource for us.
Any other questions for the climate survey? Remembering that we are going to then be hearing this on the individual building level as the principals do that. I don't think I finished my sentence. Sorry about that. Matthew, do you have a question?
I'd first like to thank Denise and the other staffers. This has been I think it's probably more useful to you than it is to us in a functional way, but it's been very important for us to hear, and I want to thank you. Three comments. This is projecting to next year. It's not in any way minimizing what's been done. I personally believe that the use of Likert scales, and I don't need a 27-point Likert scale, 5 will do, but also put on a second place for no comment, so we don't have all the no comments skew everything to the center. Likert scales would be very, very helpful, I think, in teasing out a lot of nuance for you. And of course, asking people why they comment, or giving people the opportunity to comment on each question, which you may already do because I haven't seen the document. Second thing, we saw that secondary students and staff, well, the staff, we had 35% negative on building safe and secure. I don't really know what that means. And I hope if you don't know what that means in detail, that we'll find that out, because that's kind of a disturbing figure. And I didn't see, though maybe I missed it in my dotage, secondary students evaluation and building safety. I didn't see that in the papers that I had. Finally, when we're talking about improving respect, I think we, knowing that we have this gap, maybe next year we can ask kids if they have any suggestions of what the school can do to help improve the mutual respect. They may give us some insights that, from our perspective, we don't have. But all in all, I think it was a great document, and I thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you, Matthew.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Andrea?
I just wanted to say that I got the biggest bang out of the divide between how our student or teachers view respect between students, among students, and how students view it. And I just wanted to say times have not changed.
Touche.
Anything else? Dean?
That on that issue. We call it a gap, and that presumes again that the staff and the students have the same definition of respect. And there are many times that adults would look at children's behavior, teenagers' behavior, and we grieve. How can they talk that way? How can they act that way? In their world, their perspective, they're being quite chummy and respectful. Why would you hit somebody? When we say pat somebody on the back, or give them a slap on the back, right? We think that's positive. Good job. Bang. That's an assault. So it depends on how you look at that.
Right.
So I don't think there's necessarily a gap. I think it's probably two worlds. There may be an overlap in there. Probably is. But I think it's two different worlds, and we've identified each world as respect. And we wonder why they're not the same world.
Yeah.
So
You got it.
there's more to it.
Yeah.
Good
I
point. I
agree.
agree.
Mhm.
All right, if there's no further, thank you so much for coming and doing the climate survey. I really appreciate that. And so I think we're now on, right, to their next and our last
We
agenda
are.
item, which is about the data about enrollment and stuff.
So Rebecca helps us out with all kinds of things, including surveys and enrollment and lottery, the lottery process. Fortunately, we were able to roll it out for the second time for our intra-district magnets, and I'm happy to report that we had 180 submissions. So it's still something that parents are looking for. It's third year.
Yeah, third year.
And we had 104 who got those seats. We do have kids on a waiting list. And we really look at this process unfolding we started probably February, the lottery.
Yeah, we started actively talking about it, promoting it, and having the application available in February. We aligned that with our launch of kindergarten registration.
Right. And then it really rolls all the way through the summer, especially as we have the highly mobile seats filling up and we have military coming in. The nice thing about having intra-district magnets is that when our two bigger schools, the Mystic River and the Thames River, typically fill up fast, especially in kindergarten. And we like to keep those numbers between 20 and 22, and really not go over. Catherine Kolnowski and NEA don't necessarily, they have that fourth, classroom for their kindergarten and first grade, and they don't typically fill up as fast. But we're able to enroll because there is a desire to go there from others, in the intra-district magnet. So we're able to fill those, as best we can. We always keep some numbers for the highly mobile military and non-military kids who are coming in over the summer. We did find that families are engaged in the lottery process still. We always base it on enrollment and how many seats we can offer based on the, board's real guidelines on number. The wait list will be until the start of school. So we're still kind of working on this. We still have a couple more weeks, but we're still working on this. And the greatest number of that 180, half of them were kindergartners. So that was also interesting. We have 350 kindergartners. So imagine a class at Fitch of now 350. So not that not necessarily that all those kindergartners will stay. We know we're a highly mobile community. I'll show you some of that in enrollment. And my eyes were wide open at the numbers that come in and out. Wait till you see. Because I hadn't seen that until this year, as many. We noticed that Catherine Kolnowski had the largest number that were able to be seated of kids, 39, and the lowest number was Barnum, probably because of their high enrollment and lack of space. We also noticed that Thames River and Northeast had 24 and 25 seated, so that was a good number as well. Greatest demand, of course, in kindergarten. Anything else? We did find that it was necessary that we want to bring back some policy, the policy committee around intra-district magnets. We really didn't define that as we rolled this out. We had procedures, lottery procedures, but we really need to make this, communicate this well, and it has to start with policy and procedures. So we want to bring that back to the policy. Because of that, we did have some questions of people who weren't here in time to enroll in the lottery, so missed the lottery process. So the team actually came up with a transfer request, no more superintendent, approvals, because I feel like that process was a little difficult to manage and make sure we were consistent. So we have looked at that along with our wait list and enrollment possibilities to be able to give families what they're asking for when we can. And that seems to have rolled out pretty well. You all have talked to parents, so have they been receptive, responsive to that?
Overall, yeah.
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 Okay. And trying to answer the question. So our staff here are really the ones who are the go-tos, and also Kelly, who is now the new Gigi. She's the new enrollment
Doing an amazing job.
registrar. But
Yeah, I'm doing an amazing job.
and even tweaking some procedures that we've had with enrollment. So that policy will come back too, as well as the inter-district magnet. So we really tighten up on how things are rolled out here and are more consistent. With regard to enrollment, we are a highly complex district, as you know, highly mobile, both military and non-military. The moves from New London, Norwich, and Groton have even increased. We still have Branford Manor families being moved out to hotels. To date, we're going to be looking at that data because of the mold issue. So there's a lot of transiency here. We really want to track our data and manage it better. But there's so many variables. There are magnancy movements and considerations. There are transiencies. There are special programs like our ABA program and our academy programs that are housed in certain schools, preschool, pre-K. We even think that a lot of the requests for Mystic River and Thames River kindergarten has to do with they were in their preschool pre-K in that, or even TK, transition K, and they loved their schools when they first started. But because of all of our programs being in those two schools, they really need to go to some of the other schools too. You can't possibly house all of them. And then, looking at building and grade level capacity too. So one of the things I've always said is about 300, 400 go in and out. Well, last year, the year of FY23, there were 684 students who were new entries to Groton, and there were 595 who exited. So now we're talking about a differential of about 1,300 kids coming and going in a population of 4,000. And those are the kids coming to us. Now we have another nearly 1,000 kids that are magnet schools, maybe not quite that much, that we're paying for and we're responsible for, but they don't go to our physical buildings. They go to Marine Science, they go to New London, they go to Learn. So that's quite a bit of fluctuation, and it happens all throughout the year. It's not happening only at one time. It's happening across the year.
Can you say those numbers one more time? It's hard. I don't have a visual. I think that this would
I'll
have
put
been,
it in board notes.
this would have been really
685.
helpful, I
Yeah.
think, if we had a visual
Yeah.
to this. But can you say those numbers again?
684 entered Groton last year.
In the school year of
Nearly 700 and nearly 600 exited.
The
Last
last
school
school
year.
year, the 2022 to 2023 school year.
So
Yeah.
from August of last year till June of this year,
Okay.
June 14th.
One of the things I'm seeing is I'm the McKinney-Vento liaison, so I work with students who don't have permanent housing. And I do find that a lot of housing situations are unstable. I think some of the economic challenges that people are facing impacts where they're living. And sometimes we see a lot of mobility and movement because of those economic challenges. So it's really not just the military.
No, it's really a lack of affordable housing. Apartments that they were in escalating by hundreds of dollars and they can't afford them. And so they have to find another residence or they've been put out into hotels. So it's really tough times for our families.
What, I'm gonna call me. What is the economic? What is the economic value for the district when we have that type of fluctuation?
It's a lot of time spent registering, sending records, meeting. If the child has an IEP, we have to meet. We have to revise the IEP for Groton Public Schools. If they have a 504 plan, we have to meet. We have to revise the IEP. It's a lot of time
And I think
registering and making sure that programs are ready for students to go.
And I think the cost of students' academic growth and achievement is impacted. One of the things we discussed that we want to include in our policy is that the fewer transitions a child has to make when they are a Groton student. For instance, if they are a Groton student because they are resident of that area, you remember the neighborhoods are bigger now, we have less schools. Or if they get into a magnet, that should be able, if that's the desire of the family to stay, let's let them stay for all 6 years, kindergarten through 5th grade. Certainly when they move out of district, or to another district, they need to then move, but we're pretty good about letting them stay if it happens after the mid-year until the end of the year. And not making that change so quickly. So we're very conscientious of the kids being as stable as possible, as we can make possible for them. For their education. I mean, that's the biggest cost, I think, is that, there's a lot of these moves in 1 year. It costs them.
Right, because just to add on to what you're saying, the number of students that was just shared does not include in between schools within our district. So this number doesn't account for students who may move from Charles Barnum to Thames River or, from one building to another within the district. This is strictly kids coming into Groton, kids going out of Groton.
But
So-
I think that the principals have done a nice job about
Yes.
allowing families to stay until the end of the year or saying, I'd like to switch them to a magnet because they've moved to the other side of town. Now, if I'm a parent and I bought a house on, in a different neighborhood and I want my child to go to that neighborhood school, they certainly have the right to have their child. It's probably better at the beginning of a new school year, to let them finish up. Just for the child's sake, but we're just really contemplating a lot of things that we're going to bring to policy and have you help us contemplate.
Can I ask another question in terms of one of the reasons why we went to lottery in magnet school was to make sure that we met the full requirements of the state law around racial diversity. How are we doing on that?
I would say it definitely stabilized us in the elementary. There's still Northeast Academy, it's still a little out of balance, but with taking on some of the highly mobile kids that, at the beginning of the year, because they have room, that's helped their situation even. But I would say that our number is 51% free and reduced lunch, 51% students of color. And in our buildings, middle school and high school is an exact representation of that. And really at the Thames and the Mystic River, they're very close. They're within like 5-10 percentage points, which is really good because we have wiggle room of 25% both ways. So it has done it has solved that problem or is solving it. We're in progress in some places. And then if we look at just this year, from the spring and the summer, this is the work that has been done by this central office. So we had 388 students who come into Groton Public Schools in that time frame, and 108 plus 108 that are still in process, that have just recently come and we're getting all their documentation, or a total of 500 additional students, spring and summer,
For this upcoming school.
for this
year.
upcoming school years, and we've only exited 233 to date. But there are times that when we start, those little yellow school buses start rolling down the hill and kids start coming to school, that when we take attendance in those first couple weeks, we recognize that some people have moved and they didn't let us know. So we, this is, October 1 is why we define, those are the numbers, the enrollment numbers that we will come back to you. We'll have more of an idea of what's actually happening. But this is just, I thought you'd be interested in what happens in the summer. The amount of work that it takes to make sure our families are fully registered and are ready for their students to come to school and have a school to go to.
Any other questions from the board about the enrollment data? Once again, we'll have the more complete October 1st, which will be then what's going to help us as we move forward and we think about our budget. But Dean.
We've been talking about the swing, how many about value, cost, transition, et cetera. Do we have any idea? We always describe ourselves as a mobile community, and a usually mobile community. This may be difficult to get data for, but do we know how this compares with other districts? I imagine that almost any school district in Connecticut sees swing. New students coming in, or students leaving, that's by graduating. So how unusual is this number? So if we weren't Groton, we didn't have the Navy base. Would the 1,274 swing be 1,100 or 1,000 or 200, something like that? Do we have any information like that?
No, but it would be interesting. I could set up a Google Doc and
Yeah.
send it to my superintendent.
Because we
See
say
what
we're
it is.
unusual,
Yeah.
but can we
Probably get that
quantify it?
I would say that you'll find that the lower socioeconomic and the housing situation, I'm sure that New London and Norwich have face some of the same.
I wonder if the triangle, which is Norwich and then New London and Groton, that these three communities, we tend to cycle, the families tend to cycle between the different. So it's not just military, but it's a cycle. So I would love to see
Yeah.
if they're experiencing the same.
I'm gonna set up a Google Doc. I'll let you know.
I think you even said that you could be able to get the
I
data.
might be able to get some comparative data from.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work on
another
it.
district.
That would be good. Any other questions?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, I like that lady. She's my girl.
Before we adjourn, absolutely. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have Liz. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming early, for those of us who had to sort of leave work early and doing the work that we had in the other meetings. I appreciate that and appreciate your support. And I will look forward to seeing some of you guys at the convocation, which is on Friday. But if not, we will party together at the annex
Next Monday.
next Monday.
And should we decide, will we go after for the executive session or before?
We'll
Okay,
decide that.
Okay.
Okay, and so all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion is carried. We are
have
done.
many meetings.
No, now I'm here in executive session.